Hello everyone, this is Genuine Polish, and in this video we are going to be discussing how do you get outside of the rocket interior to build a giant rocket like this. It's both super simple, but the way to do it is super complicated. So essentially what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to melt these rocket tiles. How are you going to get something hot enough inside the rocket to melt the tiles? Well, let's talk about that. So for this build, first off, you're going to need a contactless pump. So for a quick overview, basically you're going to have a drop of some priming liquid that's sitting on this airflow tile here, and then you're going to have your superheated liquid over here. The priming liquid is going to allow you to pull liquid from these tiles without having the pump being submerged. To do this, you're going to have a mechanical liquid filter that is venting a little bit of your selected priming liquid to this tile. I recommend using naphtha just because it's really easy to get. You just have to melt plastic. And for whatever reason, I would think you could use petroleum since they have pretty much the same evaporation point. But the thing is, petroleum won't actually stay on this tile here. It'll always pool down here and become sour gas, which causes heat transfer. So you don't want to use petroleum. I don't know why the interaction is different for them, but it just is. Then from the common line, you're going to have it go to a metal refinery. For this approach, we're going to need at least 2 metal refineries, and if you really wanted, you could chain link together like 5 or 10 if you really wanted and had that much power available. But we don't, so we're just going to use 2. So go ahead and have the output of the pump go to the input of one metal refinery, and then the output of that metal refinery go to another one. From there, you're going to create this feedback line. This line is going to help you keep recirculating this liquid steel that we'll have here to an optimal temperature between 5,000 and 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it's heated sufficiently, we're going to break this line and build a recirc line from the interior of the spaceship. So in the spaceship, we just have a bunch of insulated tiles going to and from the liquid input and output ports. And then we are going to have some tungsten radiated liquid pipes. It's important to use tungsten so that way there's no chance that the radiant liquid pipe will melt before the rocket tile melts. I've done it with steel before, but I think it's just a gamble which one goes first, the tile or the pipe. And so that's it for now. So what you need to do is melt some steel. What's a good way to get liquid steel, you're probably wondering? Well, I'll show you how. You need an Aquatuner. This is the input loop for the Aquatuner. What we have here is we have a feedback loop constructed here, so that way when the Aquatuner breaks, which it will when it melts, you still have a continuous flow of liquid. You don't have water that's stopped here, and that's potentially going to turn into steam and break your pipes. For the wiring in this room, everything can be copper wire besides this last segment of wire. I recommend having tungsten, so that way you don't have to worry about it melting when the Aquatuner melts. So we're going to build an Aquatuner here. A very important thing about this setup is you need the Aquatuner running constantly. So you can't have a day and night cycle for your electricity. You need to have a constant source of electricity through the day and the night. Because what essentially you're doing here is you're racing against the overheat. So what will happen, this machine will start to damage. And once it starts to damage, you need to make sure it melts before it breaks and shuts off. So right now we're at about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 500 degrees Celsius, and we're on a good track. It'll always melt every time if you do it like this. And you're going to want to have a total of 2,400 kilograms of steel. So in this room, you can really use any kind of these basic materials. You don't have to use obsidian insulated pipes. You can use any kind of insulated pipe. You really could probably get by with a regular pipe, but I would just recommend using an insulated pipe just to make sure you got everything set up right. I'm using copper for these airflow tiles. You can use whatever you like. These mesh tiles, however, should be wolframite if you can afford it, because you're going to have about 4,400 degrees Fahrenheit or 2,500 degrees Celsius liquid steel going through here, so you don't want to melt the wolframite tiles. When we just wait, and now you can see we're at 3,500 Fahrenheit or 1,920 Celsius, so we're pretty close to the melting point of this machine. Alright, so this is about to melt, so we are going to start our metal refineries. And there we go, we are still melted, and it's about 4,200 degrees, so we're going to need to up that temperature quite a bit. So we're going to want to up the temperature quite a bit while we still have it in this easily accessible stage. An important thing is you're going to want a couple of duplicants to work on this in teams, so that way you have this running all the time, day and night, for the entire time that you have this up. I forgot to mention, but make sure there's a vacuum inside of the rocket ship. It's going to make it easier for duplicants to get in and out without scalding themselves. And this entire room needs to be a vacuum also. As the steel is going through these different metal refineries, they're picking up about 200 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And like I said before, we're going to be shooting for 2,400 kilograms of steel, so that way we always have coolant flowing through. So go ahead and build your second Aquatuner. I probably should have built it a bit earlier, but that's perfectly fine. It'll melt on its own overnight. Okay, and you can see that we are at 4,800 Fahrenheit, so that's pretty good. We're pretty close to 5,000. So our steel is at 5,200 degrees Fahrenheit or 2,800 degrees Celsius. which is pretty close to the evaporation point, which is crucial that you don't go over it. If you do, this entire room is going to explode, like literally explode and melt all the way through your base like a nuclear meltdown. Seriously, it is like the worst thing ever. You'd be surprised how much damage 1200 kilograms of steel can do, especially when you add this other Aquatuner for another 1200. It is insane how much damage it does. So we're at 5,400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very, very hot. So we have our night shift working now. It takes about 5 cycles altogether once you have this operating to actually melt through the rocket tile. It depends on how much steel you're using and how fast you're operating these metal refineries and how many metal refineries you have in junction. So we're at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's the minimum temperature I would recommend for this. You want to be 1 to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 1,000 degrees Celsius above the melting point for steel. Okay, and so now that we've got this, what we're going to do is we are going to build this feedback line for our rocket. So we are going to connect this here, the output here, to the input of the metal refinery, and then we are going to deconstruct this output line. And we have this closed loop that's going to go into the rocket. Very important thing about the rocket, you need lots of people on standby to repair these radiant pipes, because until the steel gets to a specific temperature, they're just going to break off the hook, right? So as soon as they start breaking, yellow alert. There we go. There's our first pipe down. And it's perfectly fine. This is exactly what we want. It's going to be a while until the steel has enough temperature to make it through the pipe without damaging it. You can see that it's making it through the first pipe, but it's still transferring states. So we can check out the temperature of the rocket. It's at 1,000. So we still have a while to go before the steel stops melting. You're going to lose quite a bit of steel this way. The important thing is that you have that 2,400 kilograms of steel to begin with. So that way when you lose 800 or so, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's probably going to take 2 to 3 cycles, maybe more if you lost a lot of steel during this process. Okay, and then there we go. We've just melted it, and now we want to make sure that this tile is not going to melt. It should dissipate the heat pretty fast. I forgot to film an outro, so here's one of my failed attempts when I accidentally superheated the steel and completely destroyed my entire setup. Pretty cool, right? Anyways, guys, thanks for watching so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you liked it. But yeah, this is a good reason why you want to make sure that you don't vaporize your steel, because it's going to transfer heat and just completely destroy your base. Like, not even kind of destroy your base, like completely destroy your base.